Hi, everybody. This is Klaus Ehlers. This is Klaus in 60 Seconds live on Facebook, where we have really interesting conversations with pretty dynamic folks whose work intersects with our work at Family Promise. Family Promise is the leading national organization addressing family homelessness. And today's guest is a really, really interesting person. I first met Rico at our national conference in San Antonio a few years ago, where he did a couple of workshops. Actually, he's a Renaissance man because he did a workshop on youth homelessness, and he did a workshop on millennials and media. And Rico is the executive director for Anytown, Las Vegas, which he's going to explain what that is, but it's a pretty cool organization. And we're going to talk about, as the title is, breaking down barriers, building up communities. So I want to invite Rico to join us, share his unique perspective, and we'll get the conversation started.
Hi, Rico. What's going on, Klaus?
Good, I'm good. So, I referenced back to our first meeting at the national conference in San Antonio. So I talked about the title you came up with, right? Breaking down barriers and building up communities. Because I always ask the guests, like, hey, what title do you want to have? How do you want to focus it? So it's a great title. What does it mean?
Well, you know what, Klaus? Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me. The term breaking down barriers, building up communities has been a staple phrase within our organization, and essentially what it means to us when you think about days such as Sunday, for example, one of the most segregated days out of the week, because we go to our Black churches, we go to white churches, or we go to a place that a place of worship that fits that have people that look like us, right, and only like us. And so with what that means to us is it's an example of sort of the first day of Anytown, Las Vegas, Camp Anytown, where young people, they have their own cliques. And by the end of the day, they've broken down those barriers and now are building up communities amongst one another and creating sort of a brotherhood, a sisterhood amongst each other.
And so, so let's talk about Anytown, Las Vegas, Camp Anytown. What is it? What does it do? What's its impact?
Yeah, so Camp Anytown is one of the youth programs that we have here with Anytown Las Vegas, and essentially it's a program that has been around since 1983. It's the longest running anti-racist youth program in Nevada. That's a mouthful in itself, and since 1983, over 4,000 teens have graduated from this program, which brings teens from different walks of life, backgrounds, ethnicities, economic statuses, even immigration statuses and housing statuses as well. And we bring these young people together for a 4-day week of challenging workshops where they get to learn about other groups, but also they end up leaving with a better understanding of things like race, things like healthcare, things like how to be a more compassionate person. And so we eventually create the world in which we want to live.
That is cool. And that started in 1983. What was sort of the impetus for starting it? Like, obviously, you weren't, I don't even know if you were around in 1983. You weren't there at its founding, but what was it that, like, what caused it to be created? Because I love this idea.
Well, the idea stemmed from the 1920s when several Supreme Court justices saw that there was tension between Catholics and Jews and Christians. And so they formed what is known as the National Council for Christians and Jews. And so this then transformed into other programs, right, which then led birth to the Camp Anytown program, which was born in Arizona, made its way to Las Vegas in 1983. The curriculum not only has roots from the civil rights movement, but also has updated curriculum, right, that young people can relate to, and now is one of the longest running youth programs that we have in the country.
Cool. How many different places is it in?
So right now we can attest that it's over 15 cities across the country. Each city has their own way of structuring it. But at the end of the day, the Anytown name is still living to this day, which is pretty cool.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, and if there's a website people can go to, Mitchell put it into the comments section so people can check it out. So, is there a single website that people go to kind of find out where the nearest one is?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as far as finding out where the nearest one is, one, you can always do a Google search if there's an Anytown program within your area. Or if you want to learn more about Anytown Las Vegas, you can always go to anytownlasvegas.org. And then you can always shoot us a message, and we're more than happy to find similar programs like this, right, where young people can be a part of and start learning these important skills and building these relationships.
And your one of your principles is for youth by youth, right? So can you speak to that? And I'm really interested, right? Because I think the concept is fantastic, right? And working with youth is so important because there's so much that they can, they're at the start. There's so much they can do. So talk about what does it mean for youth by youth, and sort of what have you seen any long term impacts out of past Camp Anytown?
Yeah, so I'm going to use here my experience as an outreach coordinator when I worked at a youth homeless shelter. Oftentimes, when we talked about youth homelessness, right, we said we were a homeless shelter. And oftentimes, what I saw in meetings, when I was out in the streets doing outreach, it was always the adults making the decisions for young people. And so it was almost as if the adults were upstairs and the young people were downstairs and kind of just taking whatever was given to them. And so the by youth for youth approach ensures that young people not only have, I like to say this, class, not only have a seat at the table, but they're on the menu and they get to have a say in what is being put out rather than just being there as a token, right? And so we are evaluating the voices of young people, ensuring that their input is in, but they also share the same power as adults, which is critical for us.
Yeah, one of the ways I've heard it phrased is you want a seat at the table and not a folding chair.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because there is and I think it's a core principle in anything with human services. The people who are affected should be driving it. They should have power, right? It's one of the big challenges we have overall in homelessness services is we've been doing it for years with people trying to identify best practices and share those and instill those. And probably the best practice is let's step out of the way and let the people with lived expertise get the power and make those decisions. So it's that kind of a principle. Um, so how, if a community wanted to start a program like this, is there a way that, because we have affiliates all across the country, and I know that you've worked with our Las Vegas affiliate and you have those connections. Is there a way that a community can start an Anytown program?
Yeah, and I there actually is, and the beautiful thing about a program like a Camp Anytown, right, is that the although we focus heavily on things like race, prejudice, interfaith work, it intersects with so many other sectors that why wouldn't a family promise would want to get involved, right? Why wouldn't a United Way want to get involved? And the way in which it could really be done is really starting at a grassroots level, finding a group of young people that could lead this program, and developing a curriculum along with the assistance of adults. And when that is complete, that is your nucleus. And from then on, what we do is we use our partners as leverage to ensure that our partners are hearing and learning about when those opportunities are available. So we've reached out to partners who serve homeless teens, who serve, let's say, students who are in private schools, students who may, let's say, be served under a program that works with undocumented families. And so when we bring these different points of our city together, young people are able to recognize that, whoa, life isn't like how I thought it was, because they're able to meet a Muslim student for the first time. They're able to meet a gay student for the first time. And that is so important for the cultural piece. And I'd love to talk about that later on. But a lot of our work is sustained by volunteers. And so if you have people that care about social justice, want to create a better world, there is, I would say right now, especially an appetite to want to get involved. And so for us, it starts first with young people, ensuring that they're driving the car, right? Second, ensuring that that we have the support with volunteers, and three, community. If we have a point of contact with every single piece of sector you can think of in your community, then you have something already established. Now, when it comes to curriculum, of course, we can get into that, but those are the three main points. And again, I am more than happy to talk to people to ensure that programs either like this or something similar get to go out into the world, right? Because eventually that's what we want to be able to do.
Awesome. And yeah, you said you wanted to talk about something later on. Hey, talk about it now.
Yeah, so one of the things that oftentimes, right, we as a community, I see, and I see this a lot too, with parents, is we're so afraid to talk about the R word. And folks are like, what is the R word? It's racism. And sometimes when even people say it, they say it in a way where it's stuttering, or they say it in a low tone voice.
Or like it's in Voldemort.
Yes, as if it's something so scary. But one of the things that we talk about is that when you have a wound and you want to treat that wound, you don't put a Band-Aid over it, because eventually that wound is going to be subject to an infection. And we talk about racism as a wound. We cannot treat racism with a Band-Aid, right? We have to fully treat it and ensure that we're adding the right appropriate techniques, the medicine, and with that, that's the metaphor for having conversations. And so, can you imagine bringing 70 different young people from multiple ethnicities, nationalities, languages together, and we're talking about race? It shows up differently for other people. And so when we're able to do that, that is the first step. And I would say the most critical one when even achieving any type of success, because if you can't bring people together in the room, you can't even have that conversation.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's always important too, right? You actually said the R word was racism, not race, because I think we like to talk about race more than we like to talk about racism. But ultimately, we really need to be talking about racism, right? Because it's about the impacts, it's about the constructs and so on. So this is we're getting a lot of comments here, Rico. So you're generating a lot of interest. So you work with youth, right? You've got this great program. You work with a lot of marginalized and disenfranchised populations, as well as you said, sort of the whole spectrum. Are you optimistic for the future, and what structurally do you believe has to be changed to make you optimistic about the future?
Well, I think when it comes to optimism on my end, I'm overflowing with it. And this is why when I think about the impact that we've done with young people, I think about students like Abe Lugo, one of our youth leaders who's part of our youth council, who credits the Anytown program to his leadership. Yesterday, he just ended up winning vice president for the University of Nevada, Las Vegas student body. And so he credits a lot of his work, a lot of his organizing, a lot of his understanding of other people's struggles to Anytown, right? And so when I think about the structural change, I think about access to critical programs for students that otherwise wouldn't have had that opportunity. When I attended Anytown in 2007 class, I didn't have the grades to back it up. I had a tattoo on my right arm, so I was already labeled as a gang member. I had a bad history within school, but my teacher still had the audacity to look at me and say, "You're a leader." And so the resource was provided to her, right? And then she provided that resource to me. But when I looked at it extensively, I realized that these types of programs are not available to young people on a holistic level. And imagine what would happen if we started developing programs for Black girls, for young brown men, for the LGBTQ community, right? Specifically for them. And we tailored our curriculum specifically for these populations that so desperately need not only help, but also an opportunity to thrive. And once you put that spotlight on them and you allow them to really showcase their true self, we're talking about leadership across the board will showcase 100%.
I agree. And I think, right, it's a cascade. The more that we do that, the more that those leaders can then reach out to others in their communities, particularly again disenfranchised, marginalized communities, and build that up too. And I just want to share with you an Anytown camper in Utah is saying it changed her life.
Oh wow! Okay, we got someone from Utah. Let's go.
Yep. And she was also involved with Family Promise from its beginning until she went to San Francisco Theological Seminary at University of Redlands in 2016. Together, there is amazing power and change. Thank you, April. That was April Hughes out of Salt Lake. And
there's an Anytowner everywhere.
Cool. And I'm looking. Anna's made a bunch of comments here too, talking about shaping the world to be a better place. Thanks, folks. I love getting these comments here. So before we close out, any other thoughts, any other comments you want to have? So you're saying you are optimistic. You think we can kind of, the more that we empower and focus in on groups and give them tools, the more that we're going to kind of create these cascades of change. Any other sort of thoughts you want to leave us with before we close out the show?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the other things that we teach youth leaders in Camp Anytown is that when we talk about change, right, we often think about what oftentimes comes to the mind of people is that you need to be in the jungles of the Amazon to create some sort of change. But that's not the case. You can be doing it in your own town, in your own city, in your own local area. Because for us, we feel that change happens at the grassroots level. It happens at the local level. And so if you can't make change in your own area, what makes you think you can go to the Amazon? So why not focus and invest on your area first? And the second thing that one of the other things that we also teach our youth leaders is that when we talk about change, we have to almost in a way be obsessed with change, but not in the way where we want to make change within our lifetime, but ensure that if we're really in it, that we will make change within our lifeline. And if that is the case, then we will leave a legacy. We will make it easier for the next generation to come through and say, we've got this. And if we can do that, we'll live in a better place.
That's awesome. That is a great closing thought. Don't make change in your lifetime, make it in your lifeline. So that'll be our mantra for the weekend. Rico, it is great to see you. Thanks for the work you did at our conference a couple of years ago, the incredible work you're doing in Las Vegas. And I know you're connected with our terrific affiliate there as well, too. And of course, we have the mutual friend of Stacy, our Western Regional Director, who would be watching, except for she was picking up Hannah from school. So, but she'll watch the recording.
Yeah, we'll make sure she watches it later.
Yeah, we will. All right, Rico, have a great weekend. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Sounds good. Happy weekend, everybody.